cooking it.
The Trek Geeks Podcast Network is proud to have Fansets as our presenting sponsor. Stay tuned for release information and a special discount code good on your next order at fansets.com. Fansets. Our pins have character.
Hi, this is John Billingsley, Dr. Phil Phlox from Star Trek Enterprise. Now, I'm reading something that was written for me, and I think they could have done better. So this is not me, this is them. My prescription for you is a healthy dose of the Trek Geeks podcast starring Dan Davidson and Bill He Could Have Done Better Smith. It truly is the best medicine. Oh, come on, boys. And here's how they close it. Doctor's orders. Shame, tisk, tisk.
For the record, that was Dan Davidson that wrote that.
That was me.
Wow. Well,
that's even better because now it's forever blamed on Bill.
That's forever blamed on Bill.
Thank you, Mr. Bakula.
There you go. Ooh, wow. All right. All right.
From the Telethon Replay Department at Podfleet Command, it is the biggest little show this side of the Alpha Quadrant and the flagship of the Trek Geeks Podcast Network. Greetings to you, listeners all over the galaxy, and welcome to the Trek Geeks Podcast. I'm your co-host, Bill Smith, and this is episode number 299. That's right, one away from the mammoth 300th episode, which we're looking forward to. But today, we get to look forward to quite a bit. Looking forward to it. It's our 8th anniversary, which we're excited about. 8 years of Trek Geeks. And coming into year 9, I welcome my co-host, Dan Davidson. Buddy, no insults today. No jokes. 8 years of doing this with you, and I couldn't or wouldn't do it any other way.
I can't agree more. It's good to be here, buddy. Thank you for the introduction. It's hard to believe as I go through my memories on Facebook on a regular basis. I'm seeing all of these anniversary pictures and stuff come up. It make me think like, wow, it seems like it's been so long, but it really hasn't. But it really has at the same time, if that makes any sense whatsoever. But it has been a fantastic journey so far. 8 years of talking about Star Trek almost every week, and we still have an infinite amount of topics to discuss. That's one of the great things about Star Trek, and that's why I'm so glad we're doing this, and we'll be continuing to do this for as long as I can see. I don't know about you, but I'm making an executive decision, mister.
Well, I'm glad you make some kind of decision around here, because Lord knows it doesn't happen very often.
True.
The one thing we've decided about today, because, we have a big episode coming up next week. Mm-hmm. We're going to talk a lot about Trek Geeks itself. Is that today we want to go back and revisit some of our audio from the incredibly successful Trek Talks 2 telethon that we did just a few weeks ago. Dan, we helped raise, I don't want to say we did it alone because we didn't. It was a team effort between you and me and about 10 people in this amazing fandom. A bunch of money.
A bunch of money is an understatement. Yeah, we were really hoping to be able to beat the prior year's first kickoff event of the Trek Talks fundraiser to benefit Hollywood Food Coalition. And we blew the doors off, I guess it's safe to say. We pulled in, at right now as we record this, it's safe to say we pulled in close to $110,000 for this wonderful organization that, of course, our dear friend John Billingsley and our other dear friend David Livingston are such a passionate part of. And we had a great time with this telethon a few weeks ago. We changed up the way we did it a little bit, and I think the fans really appreciated it. But as you mentioned, there were a couple of aspects of the event that we wanted to highlight today, and that we're going to actually play for our fans again. And those were the two interviews that we had the honor of hosting. And of course, that is Anson Mount from Strange New Worlds and And dude, I love Anson Mount. Captain Pike is becoming my favorite captain. He's right up there with Captain Sisko with Avery Brooks. But to be able to talk to Scott Bakula, who of course played Captain Archer in Enterprise, was an unbelievable honor because he doesn't do this kind of stuff. We were able to get him with John Billingsley's help. We were able to get him on the show, and he looked like he had a lot of fun talking to us. It was a great discussion, and I'm really looking forward to our listeners hearing both conversations here this week.
Same here. I mean, we've never had a Trek Geeks that this has been this full of names. I mean, we've got John Billingsley coming up in just a bit. We've got the audio from Anson Mount. We get the audio from Scott Bakula. I mean, that's 3 Star Trek luminaries all in the same episode of Trek Geeks.
Yeah.
That's never happened before. And that's amazing.
Never happen again, probably either.
Never again.
No, I got to say it was great to be a part of, and even the conversation we have with John Billingsley to kind of wrap up the whole event is a lot of fun. And that's one of the things that I think is so important about this. There's a lot of work that goes into this thing. You do an unbelievable amount of behind the scenes work for this event. Everybody does so much work. Earl is such a great part and could not do this event without him. But the happiness and the passion and the love that goes into it, I think everybody can see, and to have the response that we did makes it all worthwhile. So I'm eternally grateful.
Same here. So we'll do a little business with America, and then we'll come back with the one and only John Billingsley. Dan, it's a new year, and of course, we want to take this moment to thank our friends at Fansets for continuing to be the presenting sponsor of the Trek Geeks Podcast Network.
Yeah, we certainly do, man. It's 2023, and Fansets, as always, is hard at work to bring Star Trek fans the best swag in the quadrant. And they've started the year off quite well with the following awesome new releases. The Voyager 29th Century Time Delta, and that's in magnet form. The TNG Klingon Communicator Badge, which is available in both pin and magnet form. The Discovery Medical Delta, which is again available in pin and magnet. And from Lower Decks, you can actually get your hands on Mariner and Tendi in their Orion pirate outfits from the episode We'll Always Have Tom Paris. And well, finally, we can get Peanut Hamper from Fansets. From Discovery, Grudge the Cat is now available along with Jet Reno. And the 3 newest pins on the brand new glittery Star Trek Universe line. You can have Picard's Cristobal Rios, the animated series Lieutenant Eric's, and everyone's favorite beluga whales. That's right, it's Cetacean Ops. Plus, Bill, we are so happy to announce that right now you can get the gigantic, oversized TOS commemorative pin at fansets.com. It's gorgeously shaped like the Guardian of Forever. This pin has the entire TOS crew on it, and it comes with a special Fansets engraved acrylic case. You can get yours right now, and I would recommend that you get yours right now because there's only 150 of these babies available.
That's amazing. And those are all incredible pins. I've already started to order mine, so they should be here hopefully any day. But that TOS pin is definitely going to sell out fast. You know what I'm going to say, everybody? Get on over to fansets.com, put that new TOS pin and all those other great pins that Dan just mentioned in your cart. And at checkout, be sure to enter the special discount code TrekGeeks for 10% off your entire order. That's right, Trek Geeks in all capital letters with no spaces. And of course, don't forget, when you spend more than $30, you will automatically get free shipping in the United States.
Fansets. Our pins have character. And we thank our friends at Fansets for being the presenting sponsor of the Trek Geeks Podcast Network. Well, Bill, my friend.
Well, Dan.
Yes, we're on the downside of a wonderful and very successful event a couple of weeks ago with the Hollywood Food Coalition. So we thought it would be very important to bring back our good friend, John Billingsley, to talk about the event. Of course, this all started over a year ago with having a discussion of what we wanted to do to help raise money for the Hollywood Food Coalition. And it snowballed into this like gigantic event twice. We had such a great time. And John, it's great to have you back here on Trek Geeks. It's long overdue, but you kind of forced it on us. So here we are. And it's great to have you here, buddy.
Yeah, the word I would like to start with is suckers.
Well, first,
hey, fellas, I have an idea.
Yeah.
Much time at all. Why, you'll be able to do it in your sleep. No, I do actually want to say, and thank you guys. Thank you very much. Thanks for having me back. Doesn't exist without y'all. I know how much work and heart you put into this. We now have a team of 10 or so. But you guys, man, it was your willingness to say, let's go for it, and your willingness to do stuff that I don't think anybody else would have been able to figure out how to do that allows it to happen, allowed it to happen again, and can't thank you enough.
Well, we certainly are honored to be a part of this. Before we get too much into detail,
I do like
about
to say, though, it all started in Dan Davidson's bedroom. And is that inappropriate?
Wow.
It's the first time anything has been said like that.
Thank you very much. Now, that is going to be my ringtone now from now on when you call me, John.
It all started in Dan Davidson's bedroom. And then flashback music.
Exactly.
When he was about 13.
Before we do get started on the discussion of Hollywood Food Coalition, John, I did want to bring up one thing in all seriousness. Of course, the entire Star Trek universe is mourning the unfortunate passing of Annie Wersching yesterday as we record this. Only 45, of course, another victim to cancer, and as we all say, F cancer. She actually got her start acting on Enterprise in season 1's episode Oasis. I rewatched the episode last night, and you were only in for one scene, so I'm not sure. Did you get the opportunity to meet and work with her at all when you were when she was on the show?
No, I did not, I'm afraid. And I was very sorry, of course, to hear about her loss, cognizant of what she meant to the Star Trek fan base and to the universe. And she sounds, by all counts, like she was an absolutely lovely person. I know that there is an effort to try and, I think, through GoFundMe, help raise the money for her family. I think she had 3 kids she left behind. For those who aren't in the business, actors don't necessarily make a gajillion dollars if you're not a series regular and you are going from job to job. You can be, like any other blue collar person, kind of like, fingers crossed, I make my rent, and fingers crossed, I make my yada yada. So if anybody's interested in supporting Annie's family, I'd encourage them to check that out. She was certainly loved, but I never met her.
She really was. I mean, she turned up on Star Trek Picard in season 2 as the new Borg Queen, and fandom really kind of lit up over it. She was menacing. She did a truly fantastic job. And then everybody started to remember, oh yeah, wait, she was on Enterprise. And to go back and to know that was her first TV gig and getting to work alongside Renee Auberjonois, she had, many stories about that. So by all means, just a bright light in Star Trek extinguished far too soon.
Very sorry.
Yeah, one of the things that I think is amazing about Annie is I got the opportunity to meet her in Mission Chicago last April, and she really enjoyed the part. She loved talking about it. She signed her autographs about the Borg Queen you have impressed me and stuff like that. And I was fortunate enough to get a picture and an autograph with her, and something that I will certainly cherish. And she will be missed by all of the Star Trek fans and 24 and all the other things that she did. So our condolences from everybody at Trek Geeks on her passing to all of her family and fans and friends. But John, let's talk about some other positive things and some happy things. And that's we made a lot of bread a couple of weeks ago for the Hollywood Food Coalition.
We did indeed. We did. It was a very, very successful event. We made somewhere between $107,000 and $110,000, and I'm being somewhat coy because money does come in after the fact. In fact, the Trek Talks is still up on Facebook and will stay up on Facebook. So if people want to watch and perhaps contribute, please do. We, of course, were absolutely elated that our dear friend Rod Roddenberry started us off by making a $50,000 donation, and we set out for the rest of the day to match that, and did it with room to spare. And I know Hollywood Food Coalition is enormously grateful and is going to put that money to very good use.
It's kind of amazing to think that in just over, well, let's call it 14 months' time since we originally hatched this idea, that between fandom and special donors like Roddenberry and some others, that we've come close to raising $200,000 for the Hollywood Food Coalition. Sitting back, yourself as a Star Trek alum, what does that mean to you? I mean, separate from kind of your role with HOFOCO, what does that mean to John Billingsley?
Well, it means a lot, and it's hard for me to separate it from HOFOCO because I also know, as somebody who's been in development for many years on various not-for-profits, that the one thing, it's sort of like It's a Wonderful Life. You don't know how much you actually make or generate because somebody talks to somebody, talks to somebody, talks to somebody, talks to somebody who ends up volunteering or contributing. Getting the word out about a not-for-profit and spreading the word is so much more important than whether you can count X dollar or Y dollar, in my opinion. And I think one of the things that to me has marked the time I've been with the organization is the fact that our story has gotten out in the world. And I'm really glad that through this forum, we've been able to, talk to people, not just about the work we do, but about the issues generally surrounding poverty and need in America. And even further, which is something that really does mean a lot to me, is that I think so many people in this universe, folks associated with the various iterations of the franchise, care very deeply about giving back to their community. And one of the segments that we have done in both years, called Trektivism, is very dear to my heart. The nature of what we're trying to engage folks about, the idea that you have a passionate commitment to volunteerism within you, even if you haven't realized it yet. And maybe that's something we can explore and help nourish. I love that about the work we're doing.
I think that one of the things that I've really liked the most about being part of this is not only just being, producer and doing some interviews and stuff, but I've learned a lot about Hollywood Food Coalition by watching those interstitial videos that we had during the event and seeing your passion and David's passion and everybody else's. And it really makes me look forward to helping out Hollywood Food Coalition specifically as much as possible. Now, there are all kinds of organizations that we've talked about. We've talked about PanCan with Jonathan Frakes and Armin and Kitty, and there's all kinds of different ones out there. But this one, I think being able to be involved in it the way that we have has given Bill and I a unique perspective of it, which makes it all that much more important to us. And I got to tell you, I said it to Bill before, we're going to be getting out to LA at some point, just basically so that we can go and donate our time for a couple of days there to help out. And it's something that I'm really looking forward to at some point, Bill.
Same here, even though I would have to do it with you, which really is really kind of what brings it down a notch or two.
We would, of course, right off the bat, separate you two and send you to very different portions of the room.
Thank you.
Oh, thank
you
goodness.
Very much. Yes, absolutely. God.
Thank goodness.
Yeah, so, and we probably would not allow either one of you to handle any sharp knives as well.
Or food, if you're looking at Dan.
In fact, your utility to the organization is diminishing, and as the guy, wow.
And that's just looking at him.
Yeah, thank you very much. Appreciate
that. No, of course it's one of the things that actually it's why I first started volunteering. I came in at my wife's suggestion. She'd heard about the organization through friends, and I started making fruit salads and washing the dishes and, lifting this and toting that. And there was such a warm spirit about the place. And particularly when it came time to actually serve the meal, the nature of the interactions with folks who were in need, it means so much when you volunteer and you feel like at the end of the day, you've actually accomplished something that wouldn't have happened without your involvement. It changes you in ways that I think over the long arc of time are quite profound.
I think that the question I get asked most often, as somebody who resides in the state of New Hampshire, which is about as far away from Los Angeles, California as you can get without going to Maine, why the Hollywood Food Coalition? Why are you helping, a group like that in California when, the homeless problem is bad everywhere? And the best answer I come up with is because, I think HOFOCO is a model. I think that there are, large scale, small scale. I think that there are a lot of organizations doing the very best that they can amid circumstances that are trying for an organization of any size. And to see the work that HOFOCO does, at least from our vantage point across the country, really it's incredibly hopeful, I think, at least in my estimation. Do you get that feedback from others along those same lines?
It's certainly a question that I get asked a lot. And, in all candor, I always start by saying it's absolutely true that there may be places that tug on your heartstrings more locally. And I don't consider fundraising or friend raising to be a competitive exercise. Right. As far as I'm concerned, let 100 flowers bloom. This is the organization that I'm attached to, and is the organization I am most competent to speak of. And I speak of it very passionately because I've been on the ground and in the trenches. And I think you're right. We do something that I think other communities can learn from, just as we have learned from not-for-profits elsewhere, things that we can do better. But I think in my heart of hearts, I always say to somebody, I'm most interested in your figuring out what it is you can do to kind of dial up your own commitment to service. And if it's in your community, great. If it's not, because you don't feel like there's anything there that kind of grabs you, we live in a world where you can be involved in things that, are outside of your geographic boundaries. When I look at what Matt Simone is doing with Esther's Echo, which you talked about, I mean, to me, that's sort of how we should think. I guess my bottom line answer is people are people. My interest is in helping people, whether they're here or there or any other place. First and foremost, help people. And if for whatever reason you feel you can do better helping a group that is in Zambia or Afghanistan or New Hampshire or Los Angeles, it's 6 of 1.
Yeah.
I mean, anybody in the business, anybody in the not-for-profit business, in the end, your job, my job is to go out and tell the story of the enterprise I'm involved in and try and intrigue people and get them excited about donating.
Right.
I also am very candid with anybody I talk to about, I wish I could donate to every goddamn group in the world that is out there trying to do good work.
Mm-hmm.
I really do.
And of course, the end goal is that someday we won't have to do that, because if we get that Gene's vision that we always talk about, the end game is to be in a world where that need is not needed.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, we're in the world that we are now, and it is needed. So the organization is great. The day was great. We had so much going on, John. We had so many great guests. We talked about so many different things. You had kind of an enhanced role this year over last year. You and Bonnie got to be the hosts, and you guys had a great time. I got to say, one of my favorite moments of the entire day was something that not everybody saw, and that's when Scott Bakula came in the back green room, and we all got to joke around. He had us in stitches. He was hilarious, giving you trash and you giving it right back to him, and it was just a lot of fun. But what was your favorite part of the day, other than Trektivism, because I know that was a very important part of it for you?
I mean, I kind of have to agree with you. I hadn't seen Scott in some time. So, even though it was only a glancing few minutes, it touched me deeply that he was willing to do it. And I only wish we'd had more chance to chinwag, because I love him so much. And he is a great trash talker. I mean, thing is, he was such a terrific professional. I mean, he was so rock solid as the number one on the call sheet. And that gig is hard, because you've got to make the day fly. Your job first and foremost is to make sure that the crew doesn't drop, because they're trying to, they're forced to put in 17-hour days. So he always had an amazing sense of humor, but he also kept the machine running. When you get to spend time with Scott and he doesn't have the obligation to kind of keep it going, he's not the captain, and it's just trash talk, and it's like, oh baby, all right, let's crack some walnuts, honey, let's get down to it.
And I gotta say, since people didn't see it, right off the bat, he jumped into the Zoom meeting. We all said our hellos, and the first thing he said was, "Oh, geez, I didn't know Billingsley was going to be here." And we're all like, "Well, we wouldn't have told you, otherwise you wouldn't have shown up."
Totally.
I mean, it was just.
Now, I will say
great.
that is sort of a universal reaction to me. So it's not as if Scott is alone. I think every guest that appeared more or less said the same thing. What is it about me that brings out the antipathy in people? I don't understand it.
Really?
If you don't know.
Is it because I use words like antipathy and
that could have something to do with it?
Yeah, isn't it? I know. I can see Dan going, "What the fuck did he just say?" Antipathy.
I'm trying to look it up without looking it up.
I know what you mean. Dan is already searching the internet for a definition.
All right.
That's not the word I thought it was. Sorry,
that's what Bonnie says all the time. It's like, why don't you speak like a human being, you asshole? It's like, you lose it or it's not like I ski jet or do any fancy pants stuff. All I do is read. Can't I use reasonably large words upon occasion? Is that such a bad thing? That's what people think.
My great aunt, who was in her own right a pioneer among women, she was one of the first women admitted to the bar to practice law in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. She advocated for suffrage. I mean, she was brilliant. She was the first assistant attorney general of the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, as a woman, to serve in that role. First one ever. And as a kid, I used to use a lot of big words, and I would get beaten up over it. I mean, literally. I mean, I don't mean like people would yell at me. I mean, like, I used to get hit as a kid, by other kids for, well, you're trying to make us sound dumb. And my great aunt was so so beautifully prescient. She was like, you know what? You shouldn't have to dumb yourself down for anybody. Use the words that you know, because they're words. They exist. They're in your language, and they're beautiful words. So do what you want to do. And I've always kind of lived by that until I met Dan.
Thank you. I was waiting. It was a great speech, and I'm like, It's coming. Here it comes.
It's coming. It's a true story. True story all around, though.
And anyway, yes. So getting to see Scott, of course, also was great to see Brent.
Yes.
I mean, there are a bunch of folks who I haven't had a chance to see much in a long, long time. So being in the green room, I mean, oddly, of course, the nature of the way this works is we are in the green room. People come in, we're there to meet them. And then we're not necessarily listening to the interviews. Right. I think you were, Dan, but I did not hear many of the interviews. So I only go on the basis of what other people are saying was a successful event. It could have been a train wreck for all I know. Were people good? Was everybody good?
From what, and I was only watching from time to time because there was stuff going on in the green, but everything that I had was checking and all of the different comments that people were posting, it was fantastic. It was a huge success, I think. I got to give credit where credit is due. So I'm going to do this right now instead of waiting, but we got to thank Earl. Our technical guy.
Absolutely.
You're talking about the green room and how everybody comes into the green room, and then they have to get separated out. And then there's all these things that Earl had to do behind the scenes to keep it smooth. And it was as smooth as glass for the entire 8+ hours that we were there.
It is amazing to me. I mean, it is amazing to me, all the trains that have to run on time and all of our guests who actually made it on time.
Yes.
Mostly.
Mostly. Tiny little glitch. Yeah. I mean, really, we have been very fortunate now for 2 years in a row in getting a great response from the guests we've invited to attend and getting a great response from, I think, the folks who've watched their donations. We tried something different this year, which I thought was kind of fun. And I think it worked out pretty well. We actually got some swag. And we kind of said, hey, donate at these price points and we'll give away some swag. And that seemed to, again, I'm a development guy within my organization. That kind of lifted the average donation up a bit than from what it was last year.
Right.
We really enjoy the stuff we were able to give away. So we'll probably do that again.
I love it.
Yeah.
We have some ideas regarding that. We'll talk about offline.
Of course, I got to wear, I didn't wear pants for most of the show. That
we know.
Was wonderful.
We know.
Everybody knows because they saw it. Unfortunately.
I was going to say that was David's idea, and that was my idea.
I have to tell you, though, we've gotten some initial feedback from folks that they loved that segment with you and Will. Fantastic. Out at that location where they shot the first scenes for TNG. They thought it was fantastic. I think if you could probably just do 8 hours of that, I think we're all set for next year. I think we're going to break some records.
It's 8 hours with Terry Metalis, is my understanding.
Yes.
Hey, Terry has already agreed to be on the next year's show.
He has. I reached out to him and
spoiler alert
and in DM and I said, by the way, after the comments I had for other things, by the way, I'm putting you on notice now. Next year's Trek Talks.
That's great.
You're doing it. He's like, yes, I am. Cheerfully.
Yeah. Our lives would be so much easier if we just got one guest for 8 hours. Do you think the fans will watch for 8 hours? Do you think it's like, probably not?
That could be interesting. It depends on who the guest is.
John Billingsley, ladies and gentlemen.
People tune out.
Exactly.
If you get Sir Patrick Stewart, I think people are locked in for all 8.
Yeah.
Yes.
If you get Dan Davidson, nobody's watching.
What? My mom will. Well, no, she won't.
No, she won't.
Wow.
Well, that's the nice thing is, with so many iterations of Star Trek now, past and present, and all the various people who are behind the scenes as well, the writers and the directors and the technicians and the actors, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. It's not as if we have even scratched the surface, I think, of the potential guests that we might have ahead for next year. Because we are doing it again, dare I say.
We are. Trek Talks 3 is in our books for next year. And I think one of the things that's important, John, is that We've now had 2 of them. They've been extremely successful, not only from the standpoint of the money that we've raised for Hollywood Food Coalition and the response that we've gotten from the people who have watched it, but the response from the guests has been incredible.
Yeah.
So I think it's very important that now that we got 2 under our belt, word's going to get around to all of the people in the Star Trek universe that this is a real thing. It's legitimate. It helps people. And I think that's going to help us get bigger and, well, not bigger, but bigger names, I guess. Bigger names.
Absolutely. I mean, I know, again, from a development perspective, if we ever were able to get sponsorships, if we were able to get kind of Bali High, hey Paramount, I mean, if you're listening, I definitely would love to see it become a more lucrative event. And I do think the more that people kind of get the idea that it's not just about fundraising for the Hollywood Food Coalition, but it's also about continuing to kind of talk about the way in which this community as a community is dedicated to Gene's vision. I definitely think it has legs for the future. I'm very excited about that. And wasn't Bonnie wonderful? There are other people that
amazing.
Fantastic.
I mean, John Champion, what a rock star. No, John, as I often say, you boys are the ones who, when we talked about this, said, let's do this Jerry Lewis thing. I was talking to John 3 years ago about what could we do that might use Rod and kind of get the Roddenberry podcast world involved. So he's also been in from the, ground floor.
I just kind of took that as he really didn't do nothing, and it was up to the Trek Geeks to get it going.
I'm all about comedy and amity.
Dan, you're going to need to look those up.
Yes, I didn't even hear what he said. I was just watching your reaction.
Of antipathy.
Antipathy. Highly anticipatory.
Dan, you want to look for something called antonyms. I'm sorry. And that's spelled no, never mind.
And while I'm on a roll, we got the Sci-Fi Sisters.
Oh, yes.
Particularly Yvette, who joined us this year. Their wonderful contribution in the first year, but also so much wonderful energy and enthusiasm. And I think particularly really underlining for us how important it was to kind of really own the fact that we were doing this on MLK Junior weekend. And that's something I'd like to continue to see us figure out how to connect even more the message of Star Trek with. I mean, particularly, I hate to say it, but, on a day when this horrible, the beating. Tyreek, that was just, once again, a painful reminder that institutional racism has a lot more to do with what's going on in our country than the color of the skin of the people involved in the crime.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree more. I think that as this event goes on, because we're committed to it long term now. I mean, I think you made us sign a 50-year contract. I'm not sure.
The Devil and Daniel Webster. Yes. I'm not often, unfortunately, cast as Satan, but really it is the Putnam.
Daniel Webster from New Hampshire, by the way.
There you go.
Yeah. As we look to do this in year 3 and beyond, is your hope kind of like Jerry Lewis's for just like $1 more, or do you want to crush it next year?
Well, I know this is Linda Gianni, somebody else I would really want to make sure I thank, because she has come on board with the Hollywood Food Coalition. We now have expanded our development staff. It's interesting. So much of what happens in the not-for-profit world is that you tell your story as a means to excite people to become ongoing funders. And I think that there is the nature of what we are trying to do, just to speak very technically, is to figure out how to diversify our funding base in a lot of different ways. This diversifies our funding base. We have several other events that we do that also do not necessarily appeal to our standard issue donor. This is a specific category. To be able to kind of say as an organization that we have a variegated source of funding is incredibly important. Yes, I would like to see it continue to generate more revenue. I would love to be able to see us begin to attract the kind of dare I say, corporate sponsorship where somebody says, you know what, I think this is actually kind of making some play in the world. I think people are going to watch this. I want my name associated with this, so I will make a contribution to the Food Coalition of $50,000 in return for your saying Velveeta cheese. That's, unfortunately, if it seems cheesy, no pun intended, how development functions. And so, yes, I would love to see, I think it's really important in this weird, perverse universe we are in, as a capitalist who has socialist tendencies, to recognize that you're always leveraging corporations to get on the side of virtue.
Right.
So, hey, corporations.
Now I want cheese.
I want cheese. I know exactly. That's how it works. And now you want cheese. I saw that amazing Star Trek event. It makes me want more cheese.
Wow. Well, I got to say, I'm looking forward to, as we go down the line, Trek Talks 47. I think is going to be a big number. We got Trek Talks 3 next year.
Another generation of Hollywood Food Coalitioners. I got to say, on a very personal level, that to me is also the thing that, from my involvement with the Food Coalition going back 6 years, when I came on board, it was doing amazing and wonderful things every night, helping to take care of people in need who were coming for a nightly meal. One of the things that I'm really, really deeply proud of that my wife helped to do more than anybody was actually start rescuing more food and really pushing the idea that we should share it with more people. I think what we've done over the last 3 or 4 years is really increase by a tremendous magnitude the service we do for the community and the ability, consequently, to tell a better story, to generate the revenue, to keep the organization alive. Because so much of what you have to do with a not-for-profit is to make sure you can stand the test of time. Mm-hmm. So I have a deep. And I'm getting probably, into the weeds, but some of what I'm particularly attached to in the organization is the nature of how we've grown in a way that I think is sustainable, intelligent, and rooted in ongoing service to more and more communities,
Well, I got to say, John, that you have definitely sparked something in Bill and I to help with this continued event every year to benefit the Hollywood Food Coalition. We're so honored and proud to be part of it. $110,000. I'm going to go with the high end of what you were talking about earlier because it just sounds great. $110,000 raised so far from Trek Talks 2. We can't wait to start planning for Trek Talks 3. And if you count your lucky stars right, we might have you on before that event just to talk about it a little bit more. So thanks for being with us again.
Fabulous. And hey, it's still there on Facebook.
That's right.
And YouTube and
Yeah. So I really, the thing is, it wasn't like tied to the headlines. So if you want to see some amazing guests and some amazing, partake in some amazing conversations and learn about the Hollywood Food Coalition, if you're listening, you haven't checked it out, check it out.
Right after this, we have some actually audio from Trek Talks 2 coming in this very episode with both Anson Mount and Scott Bakula. If you're listening to it, please head on out to givebutter.com/Trek Talks. You can make your donation there, or, you can ask Dan about it and he'll tell you where to go. Okay, so as promised, here comes the audio from our panel with Anson Mount from during Trek Talks 2. And of course, remember, if you want to still donate to the Trek Talks 2 telethon, you can. Not only is the video still available, but you can go to givebutter.com/Trek Talks and make your tax-deductible donation right there on the platform securely. But right now, here's Anson Mount. Well, speaking of excited, we need no other way to introduce our guest other than this. He is the captain of the Starship Enterprise. Anson Mount, thank you so much for giving us some of your time today and being a part of Trek Talks 2.
Oh, it's my pleasure.
It's fantastic to see Anson, and as Bill and I are Patriots fans and you're a Titans fans, we didn't really have much to look forward to this weekend. So here we are raising money for the Hollywood Food Coalition. Before I get started with my first question, though, I do want to ask, how's the foot doing? How's the recovery coming along?
It's good. So for people who don't know, I had some foot surgery recently that was nothing major. They just cleaned out a joint. But it's still a process and working on the flexation and all of that. But yeah, the Titans this year kind of did one of the
yeah.
Yes.
And it was we kind of bottomed out at a certain point, but you got to stay healthy to be in the game. So
absolutely, we have that tie with the Titans because of Coach Vrabel being a New England former great player. So anyway, on to the important things now, because football is not part of our lives anymore this year. Of course, it all started season 2 of Discovery when we first saw you as Captain Pike. And I got to say, this is going to sound a little dark. It's going to sound a little twisted. I've wanted to see that accident that caused Pike's injuries for 50 years. It's something that I've always wanted to see. And Through the Valley of Shadows was just amazing. And the emotion and passion that you put into those scenes was just awesome. And I remember actually sending a direct message to Bowie Kim and Erica Lippold, who wrote that episode, thanking them for showing what I've wanted to see for so long. So a lot of my questions tonight are going to start with, as a Trek fan, because we know you're such a Trek fan. So as a Trek fan, what was it like for you to actually do that scene that is such a part of Trek history, but we have never seen before?
Yeah, well, obviously we wanted to get it right. And so that involved a lot of choreography. You know, that set had the potential to be quite dangerous because of everything that was going on, and it's one of those things where you know you're in the center of the creative moment, and there are times when you get a POV that other people don't get, and that was one of those moments, definitely. And I think, you know, it reminds me of another moment was in the Inhumans when the Black Bolt's getting arrested and just a little noise comes out of my mouth and it blows a car down the road, you know, and you get ready to shoot and everybody's like, okay, take cover. And you're out and like, I guess nobody's going to protect me, but all right. The makeup was interesting. I'd never done that before. But more than anything, I really wanted to have that scene in the corridor not just be from current Pike's point of view. I also wanted to get the point of view of future Pike, because I think it's important. It reminded me a lot of the end of 2001: A Space Odyssey, in which that was done very right. And also, if we do ever get a chance to take this all the way to the end, I'm wondering if there is going to be a moment where that scene happens from the other side.
That would be simply amazing. That's one of the things I've always wondered about as you watch The Cage or even the Menagerie parts 1 and 2, you know, because obviously, you know, Pike is in the wheelchair and really all we have is the boop, as I call it, you know, the blinking light with sound to kind of give us what Pike is feeling. I would love to see it from that perspective, because I think that would just add even more gravity to it, honestly. Looking back at season 2, and today our theme is kind of really the power that Star Trek fans have to affect change. Several times throughout Star Trek's history, you know, they've stopped the show from being canceled. I mean, you know, in the case of Strange New Worlds, the response to fandom kind of helped that show into existence. As an actor, that's got to be a pretty special moment to know that, you know, a character you performed was received so favorably that it went on to its own series.
I assume that was the case. It was a conversation even before my appearance on Discovery. Akiva, when Akiva Goldsman joined the Discovery and its inception, he assumed that because he was told it was a prequel, so he was like, "Oh, it's a Pike ship." So he shows up in the writers' room and he's like, "Wait, what? A different ship?" So he was like pulling for a Pike show, and they didn't tell me that, thank goodness. And what I didn't know is that the day we were shooting that first bridge scene was actually I believe that was my first day. And Alex apparently texted to Akiva, "I think we may have found Pike." And and the rest is history. But certainly I do believe that the fan response moved that past the point of a conversation, because I do believe that the network was excited about that as well.
It's pretty amazing to see history repeat itself with Star Trek. Of course, the fans kept the original series going for an extra season with their mass campaign. And then we had the job that you, Rebecca, and Ethan did in season 2. We talked about the accident a few minutes ago, but one of the other things I wanted to ask you about was because you've talked about how big a Trek fan you are and how surreal it's been for you to be sitting in that chair now as your job and being Captain Pike for so many millions of fans. This season ended pretty incredibly with a quality of life. What was it like for you as a fan, again, to be reading this script and you're saying, oh my God, we're retelling one of the best episodes of the original series, Balance of Terror, complete with an older Pike and an alternate timeline and monster maroons and the whole 9 yards. As a fan, what was that like for you to read that script and be like, wow, this is going to be epic? Because it was epic.
Well, first, I think you meant Quality of Mercy.
Quality of Mercy, excuse me, yes.
Quality of Life would be a much more boring episode. We just sort of tour the show, like which mattresses everybody uses.
It's a travelogue. Yeah.
Right. It was extremely exciting because it was one of those things that I'd never done before, right? Which is to try to, in a way, recreate an episode of TV that had not only been done like 50 years ago and done so well that it has a special place in the hearts of classic Trek fans. So when I spoke to Chris about it, I was like, I want to match right down to the blocking. He was like, oh no, I'm all on top of it. So when we were doing that first bridge scene, particularly, our director, Chris, our directing producer, had the episode on a computer, and we were trying to match that blocking step for step and camera angle for camera angle. And as you probably saw, the sort of film noir lighting that they used in that episode, we were trying to match that to really give it a sense that Pike has stepped into Kirk's shoes.
The special effects that we got to see, of course, it's a classic episode, Balance of Terror, but to see it with the special effects that we're able to see today really gave it a whole nother level of excitement for me. And I remember sitting there watching it with my wife, and I said, if Spock says Mark 114, I'm going to flip out. And he said it. And it was really great to be able to, it's not doing a copycat show. It was really something that was just fantastic.
Thank you.
Obviously, you can't talk about season 2 coming up, and we know that these ninja CBS lawyers are standing at either side of your camera to sort of stop, sort of any discussion of anything that's going on. But looking at how season 1 went and just how truly amazing it was, I think it touched every part of every Trekkie with a lot of the things that occurred. Do you feel, not to spill any tea or anything, but do you feel like we're going to get the same sense with season 2 as fans?
I'm sorry, could you say that? I missed you for part of the question.
That's okay. Do you get the sense with season 2 that Star Trek fans will be as gratified as they were with season 1 with all of the things that touched their hearts?
I think so. Yeah, I do. And also I think that we gained some latitude from the scenes that worked, that maybe some people weren't so sure about, that ended up really working well. We got to really go for it this season. So there's some episodes that are that have never been tried before. They're so for instance, the one that's already been announced, obviously the crossover with Lower Decks is tremendous fun and straight up comedy, and we had a blast with it. And but that's not even like the craziest things that we did. I mean, there's one episode I'm thinking of particularly towards the end of the season, and you'll know it when you see it, where it required us to work weekends, many weekends. But we were so excited about it. It was not laborious. We were excited to show up for Sunday rehearsals and all the things we were having to do to pull together this one episode. we're really excited about it.
This is probably a question that you've been asked 100 times, Anson, but I'm going to ask it anyway here for anybody who's viewing who hasn't heard it. What was your favorite moment of season 1 as both an actor and as a fan?
Man, that's a tough one. Oh boy, because I know I'm going to say something and later I'm going to be like, oh, what am I thinking about? So many. I really enjoyed getting to ride a horse in the first episode. I felt like that was, just to be completely selfish, that was a bridge from Hell on Wheels to Star Trek. And it was such an unexpected way to start, I think, to have a man on a horse in a science fiction show, but it really is Pike. Mm-hmm. He's a horse guy. And the fantasy episode was so much fun for us because we got to play opposite again late in the season, and it really woke us all up. Mm-hmm. And we really went for it. You know, we were like, damn the torpedoes, full speed ahead. We just, as a cast, I was so proud of everybody because we really embraced it.
Oh, yeah. It's probably my favorite episode of the season. It's the one I most look forward to on the schedule. And then when I finally saw it, I think I watched it 3 times in succession just because it was just so much fun. Speaking of fun, there's a cast edition this year. A living legend in terms of comedy, Carol Kane, comes aboard the Enterprise. What's it been like to have that sort of different dynamic in the engine room?
It's lovely. She is lovely. I love working. I mean, obviously, I've been a fan of hers my entire life. So when I saw her, I was like, what? That's crazy. And so excited and so out of left field. But she is so much fun to work with because she has this quality about her where, you know, she's been doing this for decades, and she has this thing where she never assumes she knows how it's done. And I don't know how she manages to retain that sense of purity in any given scene. There was actually one point she cracked me and Rebecca up because we had this 3-person scene in a corridor, and at the end of it, you know, Rebecca and I walk out to go do something, and usually the camera lingers on the person that remains as for a transition. And we walked out of frame, and Carol goes, "So do I?" And we were just dying. She's she's consistently happy and funny and makes the most interesting choices. We've been so lucky to have her.
I liked how a minute ago you talked about how kind of passing the torch from Hell on Wheels, which, by the way, I haven't finished it yet. I'm in season 2, and it's just remarkable. As I said, it's very muddy, but it's remarkable. It's great seeing a Star Trek tie-in with Colm and everybody that does that show is fantastic. I like how you talked about that passing of the torch and Pike on a horse, because one of the things I liked so much before season 1 was aired, but it had been announced, was that poster for season 1, which showed Pike on a horse looking up at the Enterprise. I think that's something that's always good. I'd never really thought about the passing of the torch from Hell on Wheels until you just brought it up, and it makes perfect sense. But question doesn't even have anything to do with Hell on Wheels. I just wanted to bring that up. Is it a more difficult task for you to play this character, knowing that Pike knows the date and the time and what's going to happen to him? Because for the first 50 years of Star Trek, we didn't know that. We only knew that after season 2 of Discovery. So I think John Champion it wasn't John Champion. Armin and Kitty were talking about the fact, which is kind of cool, that they're watching Strange New Worlds, that Pike knows what's going to happen and when, so he could go run into a burning building and save people and know that nothing's going to happen to him. Is that something that you think about as you're playing these scenes? And is that something that is still going to be in his mind in upcoming seasons, because it kind of wrapped it up a little bit, at least in my mind, in the season finale?
Well, so many things about this job is odd. First of all, that I'm in it. That's bizarre. My wife is texting me. Sorry.
That's all right.
And I never turn down a text from my wife. Happy man,
Well done.
happy wife, happy life.
Spot on.
But also, stepping into the role of Pike in the second season of Discovery, sort of joining a show when it's already up and running, that is interesting. And coming in and playing a character where we know the first act and we know the third act, but we don't know the second act. I've never done that before. It's like playing the middle of Hamlet and then, forgetting about acts 1 and 5. It's
right.
It's really wild. But the whole thing with knowing his fate, kind of, I don't worry about it too much because I really just, it's a building block of scenes, and I try to work on each scene specifically. And it's also like, I used to rock climb a lot, and even though intellectually, when you set your own ropes and you know what you're doing, you're safer on that wall than you are in a car doing 65 down the interstate. But your body doesn't believe you, right? So the adrenaline is still going to pump regardless.
It's I never even thought about it like that. I mean, I've been in the car with Dan before, and I know we're not really safe at any speed, so I can believe that's 100% true, especially at our age. I want to drift away from Star Trek a little bit because, obviously the theme of the day, as we talked about, is Trektivism. And Anson, you yourself have expressed a desire and often done work giving back. And we were talking off air before about the work you've done with the Bob Woodruff Foundation. I wonder if you talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, I'm pretty new to supporting them, and I found them through a great organization called OMAs, and we raised about $90,000 for them this holiday season. And they are a great organization that identifies programs that help impacted veterans and their families, and try to do it in a way that they can more efficiently, say, than the VA. And they have awarded well over $100 million in grants so far. I also do some work with Team Rubicon, which I don't know if you know about them, but they're a group of veterans that use their experience in fast deployment to go to places hard hit by environmental disasters. And it was during my work on Hurricane Sandy in New York when I came across them. And when you go down into in an area like that, you find out real fast that there are two organizations that know what's going on. That's the Salvation Army and Team Rubicon. And you also find out that FEMA is not there to come in and rescue everybody. That's not what FEMA does. FEMA goes in and sets up a bureaucracy that's going to be there for a long time, as well as start the planning stage for people to have transitional homes. They're not there to save people. In Team Rubicon, they go in and they identify what needs to happen quickly, and they get it done. And it's turned into a very large, very effective organization that is, in a funny way, has also benefited people who are working through PTSD because it gives them something to focus on.
Wow, that's pretty remarkable. I mean, obviously the devastation that occurred in the New York area with Hurricane Sandy was pretty severe, and I've never really been exposed to Team Rubicon now, but I'm absolutely going to look them up. And of course, the Bob Woodruff Foundation, the great journalist who was sustained a serious head injury while covering the war. Certainly, he's come back and made quite the recovery. But I know the work they do, and they do an amazing job as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's one of the things that I love about a day like today, where we're talking about raising money for Hollywood Food Coalition. There are so many other ways to help people, which is the very heart of what Trektivism is all about. So to hear these different types of stories that we've heard, including this one, Anson, thank you for sharing that information. I knew nothing about Rubicon either, so it's definitely something I want to check out. One other question I have for you with regards to Star Trek is, were you prepared for what it was going to be like to be now a part of this incredible universe for the rest of time in terms of conventions and fans and episodes and dealing with people like us. I'll just put it right out there.
It's sort of like asking, were you ready to take that LSD? No, of course not. How can you prepare? But it was such a lovely experience coming into it. First of all, as a Trek fan, it wasn't even on my bucket list because it never occurred to me that I would be on Trek, right? Much less be the captain of the Enterprise. And then when it first happened, and I believe that it was at Creation Con, as I was shooting Discovery, people kept coming up to me and saying, "Welcome to the family." Not welcome to the franchise, right. not welcome to the show, not welcome to the convention, welcome to the family. And that really gets at the heart of what is different about this culture than regular fandom. And so it's been, it continues to be my honor to be a part of it, as well as, I hope it never stops being surreal to me that I'm the captain of the Enterprise, because it feeds into my gratitude.
How many people get to say that?
And you have to have a healthy sense of gratitude as an artist, or you won't find your fuel.
Well, I think that if we like to refer to Vegas as the Trek Family Reunion and not the Trek Convention, and we hope that we get to see you at the Trek Family Reunion in August, because as you know, it's one hell of a time, and Vegas never disappoints. But we're so grateful for your time today, Anson. We know that you got a little one in the house. You're nursing it. You're rehabbing a foot, and your life is not dull. Let's just put it that way. So we're grateful for all the time you could spare with us today. We really are.
I know. She wants. My friend was asking me the other day, what does your daughter like to do? I'm like, whatever threatens her mortal existence. That's anything that will kill her or maim her, that's what she naturally gravitates towards. Excellent. So I'm going to be watching. My wife is very good at saving her.
We can't thank you enough for being here. Congratulations on the success. We wish you all the success in season 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I'm just throwing it out there.
12.
And we look forward to talking to you again really soon.
Thanks, guys. I appreciate it. Thanks for all you're doing.
Okay, so right now we're going to bring you our discussion that we had with Scott Bakula. We actually gave him top billing for Trek Talks 2, and it was well worth it because he was fantastic. And as we've talked about already, don't forget, you can still go and watch the entire Trek Talks event. Just go to trektalks.net, and you can still donate by clicking on any of the links on trektalks.net or going specifically to givebutter.com/Trek Talks. So hope you all enjoy this conversation with myself, Bill, and the wonderful Scott Bakula.
The fact that we're about to talk to this amazing individual is just beyond words for me. I could say, "Oh boy," to reference Quantum Leap, but I won't. I could say it wrong and say he was on NCIS Nolans, but I won't. Now, simply put, he is Captain Jonathan Archer of the good old NX-01. Mr. Scott Bakula, truly, I can't tell you what an honor it is to have you here today for this extremely special occasion. Thank you for being here and welcome.
It's my pleasure. Thanks for having me.
It's just such a joy, Scott. We talked to so many people, and last year after Trek Talks, we heard from a lot of people who said, you have to invite Scott Bakula next year. We've heard from people this year who were so excited when we announced you as a guest. But I want to know if in the year since Enterprise has gone off the air, are you truly aware of how popular Enterprise has become, especially in the advent of streaming?
I probably am not. So that's nice to hear, though.
We hear about Enterprise from people all of the time, and I think that the thing that they key in on most is Enterprise's hopeful quality of exploration. Deep Space Nine had certainly its own tone going through the Dominion War, and Voyager was kind of Star Trek with a crew lost in space. But Enterprise kind of recaptured that that sort of spirit of what Star Trek is all about, which is kind of what today is all about. But you know what, we hear from people all over the place, and in hindsight, what does that make you feel?
Well, I have to say that when we were in the midst of making the show, and when we were kind of not cut short, but when we got our fourth season done, we all talked about hoping that the show would be more appreciated as time went on, because I felt like we achieved something pretty wonderful in those 4 years, especially in my opinion, the last 2.5 years, which I talked about before. But that kind of building through the Xindi element, and with the 9/11 component fusing the writers' brains and minds and hearts. We were always, I think, hopeful, all of us, that we'd done a lot of good work, and that we would hope that we would be appreciated as time marched on. But I'm thrilled. I love that spirit of the show, which is what we were going for from the get-go, and which is, I liken it to the original show. And there was that positive. I mean, my character had that going forward, and that kind of just the Wild West aspect of it all. But at the same time, let's do something for humanity. Let's put humanity out there in a good way. Let's try and work with other. He didn't go out with a lot of chips on his shoulder about who he would or wouldn't, do business with. Once he got past the Vulcan thing, I think it was pretty much free sailing. And I was really, really pleased with where we ended up on the show, and I'm really glad to hear that people are enjoying it.
It really is amazing, Scott. We have on our podcast, we sometimes do what we call deep dives into episodes from all across the shows. And whenever we do Enterprise specific episodes, the response that we get is amazing. I mean, we get good response for all of them, but Enterprise has really come into people's hearts, especially over the last, I'd say, 5 or 10 years, Bill, somewhere along those lines. It's really great to see. Now, of course, we know that Enterprise was unfortunately short-lived. It was the time of UPN and all that. Now, I've heard stories that some stations in Texas would air local high school football games instead of Enterprise on Friday night, which is ridiculous. But do you think that if Enterprise had continued, if it was on a different network than UPN, do you think it would have gone longer than the 4 years, or do you think everything that was happening at the time kind of all contributed to that?
Well, there were a lot of things, outside factors that contributed to which again, I've always said, I'm never going to complain about anybody getting 4 years of work on a television show.
Right.
Sadly, we were being compared to the 7 years that the other shows had that were all syndicated shows. Had we been syndicated, we would have gone an easy 7, kind of easy breezy, and our numbers were beyond what anybody else had done when we started out. But the nature of network television, and it was just a different animal. There were lots of changes in the hierarchy of not only of Paramount but of the networks, and we were there at an unfortunate time. And yet, I still have to say, gratefully, we had 4 seasons. But I think it would have been nice to do more. We certainly had more stories to tell, and we had places to go, but it didn't work out. And you can't really point a finger at one person or another. There were so many elements to the beginning of UPN and the transition there in terms of Dean leaving, and just people at Paramount left also, and a lot of champions that were Star Trek folks kind of left during the course of the 4 years. It was a strange time and volatile time, but we slugged our way through it, and I'm so glad that we got the 4 years, because there was a moment when we were only going to have 3, and that would have been a real shame.
Yeah.
Well, I think that's a great testament to fandom, especially, and that's kind of what this day is all about. I mean, this is about the power of Star Trek fans, especially in using it in causes for good, and I think that's really what kind of is the impetus behind this whole telethon. I want to take a moment to ask you, because we know throughout your career you've been active with with charitable causes. Are there any that you are actively working with now, or that you'd want to mention?
Well, I've done for years. I mean, we do lots of stuff with the arts, because we've had kids in the arts, so we're constantly doing things with ballet companies and with school theater programs, and so I always tell people, if you can help out in any of those any artistic endeavors for young people, whether it's support buy a trumpet for a band, that in your school or whatever, try and do. And those are kind of smaller deals, but the kind of grassroots parents, they're the people that keep those things going because they want their kids to be exposed to those things. I worked with Broadway Cares for years, and I still do. That's kind of like a long running charity that I've been involved with. But I'm actually at a interesting kind of looking at this year as a year to try and maybe put more of a stamp on a particular group. I know we do lots of work with the LGBTQ community and lots of support there. Animal rescue shelters. My wife especially is involved in that, and but this particular idea of providing food and care and necessities for people that are less fortunate is a wonderful and so it's such a worthwhile cause. And I love the fact that you're collecting food, unused food that would be going to waste, and repurposing that and getting that out there, because that always drives me crazy. Being on movie sets and TV sets, what happens to the food, and we do a pretty good job of getting it out there at the end of the day. And you're always like, where are you going right now? I said, why'd your car loaded up? Oh, I'm taking it down to, such and such. Well, it's 1 o'clock in the morning. Should you be doing that? And oftentimes it would be a woman from the crew who is driving food over and dropping it off, and so I feel that our industry does a lot of good work, when we're working, and making sure that people get. But these kinds of causes that go on continuously and are in the trenches every day, all year long, year after year, that you're to be applauded. And boy do we need people like you and groups like this working hard.
I think that's one of the things I find so amazing when I think about it. We've been involved with the Hollywood Food Coalition with our good friend, and of course your good friend John Billingsley and David Livingston, for a couple of years now. I can't wrap my head around the fact that they have not missed a single night of providing a hot meal to those in need since 1987. That just blows my mind that it's been every single night without missing a single night. It's amazing. So I'm so proud to be part of it, and all the organizations that you spoke of. I'm a big animal lover, so I think it's great. When I first introduced you, Scott, I spoke of Quantum Leap very quickly. Of course, you had the opportunity at one point during the run of Enterprise to have a reunion of sorts with the late great Dean Stockwell in the episode, season 1 episode Detained.
Yes.
You guys had a great relationship on Quantum Leap from everything that I've seen and read in the show itself. What was it like to be able to work with him again?
It was great. I mean, I love that guy. He was such a unique person. Talk about somebody who believed in causes and he fought for the environment, which he kind of educated me on. I came from St. Louis, Missouri, and then I went to New York City. Then I came to LA, and I wasn't an environmentalist by any any stretch of the imagination. And he really, got me going and involved in things from, right from the get-go. And it was like, I need to get this together, and I need to get focused on the planet more and those kinds of things. And that's been a huge part of my life ever since. One of the great things I can say working with him was that he gave me that. And I've in turn, you pass that down to your kids. And so beyond just working with him, a legend and a genius and an amazing actor, such a giving person, such an unusual person, an artist outside of being a great actor, an activist. Just he was a hero. And to get another chance to work with him, we stayed in touch, and I followed, we'd bump into each other at conventions, and for Quantum Leap and Star Trek, and and that was always such a joy. He would just drive the organizers crazy with the cigar smoke, and and they become please, Mr. Stockwell, will you take the cigar outside? Oh yes, I will, absolutely will. Right back to it. And I then had he came and did an episode of NCIS also, and then I saw him after that, but he had a big, very large impression on my life and how I handle myself as an actor on stage with other actors and crew people. And he had a great spirit about him. I always say this, but he would come in the back door after playing 18 holes at Griffith Park, and he's mad that we jerked him off the course after 16 holes, and the door would open and you'd hear from the back corners of the stage, "The fun starts now." And we'd all been there since 7 in the morning or 6 in the morning. He's waltzing in at 4 o'clock, but he was loved by everyone. And, I've had a really good fortune to work with some mentors and some older actors in the business, and he's certainly one of my top favorites, and he is missed.
Absolutely. I've been rewatching some of the original Quantum Leap series since the advent of the new series, and I got to tell you, man, it holds up. It is some fantastic television, and I'm getting addicted to it, and I'm not ashamed to admit it.
Oh, well, that's good. People are still finding that show. That's the beauty of streaming and all these outlets. You don't disappear like the old days. You can hang around, and it does hold up, and people are finding it. Young people are finding it, or all of a sudden somebody who was young when I was doing it who's older and now has grandkids. They're introducing it to their grandkid, and there are so many things that were valuable and entertaining and also good for pretty much almost all ages. And you can't say that about too many shows anymore. And that wasn't the intention. It just was the tone and the nature of it and the timing of it. And that's why I think it holds up too.
Well, speaking of other shows becoming new again, obviously there's a new Quantum Leap. Patrick Stewart has come back to Star Trek in Star Trek Picard. Kate Mulgrew is back in Star Trek in Star Trek Prodigy. I'm going to throw it out there. If Alex Kurtzman calls you tomorrow and says, we want to do Archer as president of the Federation or whatever scheme they cook up, would you have an interest?
Listen, I've been doing this too long to ever say no, never, or no to anybody. I talk to everybody about stuff. So sure.
One of the things that's great about all this new Trek, Scott, is you are now what we would call one of the legacy shows, which is it's a badge of honor in my opinion. Yeah. So with all the we've seen some legacy characters coming back recently. We saw Quark and Kira from Deep Space Nine showed up in Lower Decks this season, voiced by Armin Shimmerman and Nanav Visitor. In addition to coming back to live television, have you ever done any animation work that would interest you in doing voice work as Captain Archer in an animated?
I've done a bunch of animated voiceover work and animation, so I enjoy it. It hasn't come across my desk, but I do appreciate being referred to as legacy as opposed to old Trek.
Trek is kind of,
that's very nice.
Trek is kind of evergreen. I mean, yes. I've been a fan since I was a kid in the 70s, and I still go back and watch the original series, and it still is relevant and salient as it was then. Same with Next Gen, same with Enterprise, same with all of the other shows. So I think legacy is really kind of the perfect description because it's kind of all one big tapestry.
Absolutely. I agree with that. And I think, the reason that it stays relevant, sadly, is that we have most of the same issues still exist on our planet.
Right. Yeah.
And we have not made the jump to figuring out that we're all in this together. And I don't think that's straight out of the Trek, playbook. And, we got to solve that on this planet first. And we're a long, long way from that, apparently, and judging by how we're living and living amongst each other. So so those stories they remain relevant and poignant, and however they're parsed out in all these different incarnations, they're valuable. And I've always loved Trek because you gloss it over with the space stuff, but and then you sneak all the hard stuff right through the middle of it, and it's a thing of beauty. It still is.
It really is. Now, if I remember right, before you took the job of Enterprise, you obviously had seen the original series.
Yes.
Had you seen much of Next Generation at all, or any of the others at that point?
No, because I never liked Patrick Stewart. So that's that's no. It was LeVar that really was that was the problem. No, I had not. It came on at a time when I was working. I can't remember exactly when it came on, and I just kind of missed it.
Yeah.
And if that makes any sense at all, and kids were happening and all kinds of stuff, and there's a time when I just watched much less of everything. And I was doing a lot more theater back then, and that's nighttime, so I never, but it's, I've seen a lot of it since then, and I've gotten to know those people, and what a magnificent crew that was and is, and a joy to know all of them and their craziness. They are just all wackadoos, and I love them all. They're a blast.
That's great. We had the pleasure of talking to Anson Mount a little while ago, who is the newest captain, even though he's playing a captain older. So he's Captain Pike, of course, in Strange New Worlds. I'm going to ask you the same question I asked him, Scott, and that is, when you started into this journey, did you have any idea what it was going to be like dealing with what is most likely the most recognized television show on the face of the earth, because of its longevity, because of the message that it brings across? Did you know what it was going to be like to become Star Trek legend in your own right as Captain Archer, and what it means to people to love this show and to have the effect it does? I will say to you right now, I have never had the opportunity to speak before. Star Trek literally saved my life back in 2000. I was on the verge of suicide, and if it wasn't for the show, I would not be alive today. What is something like that to you as an actor who goes from job to job after time? What is it like being part of the Star Trek universe?
Well, first of all, I'm glad Star Trek was around.
Thank you.
So you seem like a wonderful man, and you have wonderful energy, and I'm glad you're talking with me right now.
Bill shaking his head.
I had a taste of it with Quantum Leap because it's about the sci-fi fan. That's really what it comes down to. And so I'd gotten an inkling of that. I did Lord of Illusion, so I got some more sci-fi and Clive Barker stuff, and I did a couple other. I did Invaders, and I did some other things.
Oh yeah.
So I did the reboot of the miniseries of that.
Yep.
So I had a sense of it in terms of the demanding nature of a sci-fi fan. And I've always found that to be just a driving force to be good and be better and be truthful. And because what I discovered was, and even though this was at the early stages of things lingering on in the Ethernet, that whatever you do is going to be around and going to be picked apart, and it's going to be treasured or not treasured. And so there's a responsibility, and I like that. I thought this is good, and I like this fan. You don't have to be afraid to ever dumb it down for the sci-fi fan. Mm-hmm. And I so appreciate that. I know writers appreciate it, and I think the fans appreciate it because they're being challenged. Right. And you've got to live up to the challenge. So I think it's a wonderful marriage. It's why I've done so much sci-fi in my life, because I'm a sci-fi fan. I love sci-fi, but I like this. I like the relationship, and I've got fans. Quantum Leap fans from the first Quantum Leap convention back in 91 or whenever it was that are still follow me around when I'm in the theater in London or wherever, and they show up. And now I've got Star Trek fans that are following me now. That's 20, we went off the air in 2005, but that's a lot of years now. And there's a responsibility, and there's it works. I think it works great for an actor and for the fan to have this kind of relationship.
Nice.
I was just thinking your next sci-fi project should probably be a revisitation of the Disney Sunday night movie I-Man.
There you
which
go.
you did in 1986.
That's right. I left that out, but that was the first one.
Yeah. Oh, I know. I watched it. I remember watching that in 86 going, oh, wow, that's pretty cool. And then when you turned up on Enterprise, I'm like, hey, that's the guy from I-Man.
Well, clearly, you and I went on separate paths for about 2 decades.
Yeah, we did. We did. What can I say? Well, I mean, I was a teenager then. There were some strange years, Scott. I got to tell you.
It's all right. It's okay. It's okay. But that's quite a jump from I-Man to Enterprise.
It is.
So you missed Quantum Leap then.
I saw it kind of because when I was doing the whole college thing at one point, and of course you have different priorities in college.
I got you. Yes.
Beer was among those.
Yes.
We've only got you for a few more minutes. I want to ask you, you're an actor. I mean, you work professionally. When you unwind and you want to binge something, what do you disconnect with? What do you like to put on?
Well, we watch a lot more than I think probably we ever used to, because of the opportunity to grab something, to not have to be there on Thursday night at 10 o'clock.
Right.
Be able to pick it up. But, we watch we watch little bits of everything. I'm fascinated to see what's the date today? Oh, so Your Honor just is out. So I keep looking at that billboard.
Oh, Cranston,
Brian. Yeah. And it looks like, is he King Lear or what is happening here? And I'm kind of fascinated to see how they solve another season on that show, which was great. Of course, you're asking me, and I'm blanking on other shows, but we watch political stuff. We watch Bill Maher every Friday when he's around, and but we've watched the murder, true life murder shows that we're all being hit with now that we're going to have for years, but we've enjoyed those. We watched. I'm just thinking of stuff that's flying on my head. We watched Severance. That when that came
that was so good,
right? Some unbelievable performances in that.
Yeah.
The Old Man. I mean, we're kind of.
We feel like we've watched it all during this whole COVID era.
Yeah. It seems like so old news to say I love Ted Lasso, but. I just love Ted Lasso, and then I never thought I would like Schitt's Creek, and then that came on. I was like, "Oh my God, this is so great." They were so. That was anyway. So I'm a television fan, and then we do the movie thing too.
Yeah.
So let me ask you this, Scott, because it's interesting that I hear no from a lot of actors. Have you watched Enterprise? Have you watched your own show? Because I've talked to a lot of people that don't like to watch what they've been on. So I'm glad to hear that you've watched it. That's fantastic.
Oh yeah, no, I did. I was involved in. I saw all the dailies, and so I was involved in that at the time, and I like to see. That show also is different than like a straight ahead drama, or there's so many special effects, and you're working with all these people every day. And in a way, I'm honored. I was honored to work with those people on our show, because I felt lucky to be in the middle of all these geniuses who were just, and then you'd see what they did with, we turned it in, and here it comes, and holy cow, that space fight was amazing.
Yeah.
But I was just rocking inside my little, ship along with everybody else, and. Feeling foolish, and the makeup and the costumes and all of those things. We had so many extraordinary people working on the show. I don't know why our show didn't win 10 Emmys every year for just the technical side of it. It just what Bob Blackman did, every week was insane, and Michael, and anyway, and you'd see other people winning the makeup and everything. It's like, okay, that's nice, but we were like in another league. And I can remember competing with other shows, like when I was doing Quantum Leap and we were competing with Star Trek shows that were on. And I thought, well, we're never going to win anything, because how can you look at they've got that orchestra, they've got the, and I used to walk across the alley and sit in with the orchestra when they were recording stuff and just be, it was a big deal. Yeah. And it still is a big deal. And it was meaningful to me to be a part of it.
I'm just glad you didn't say you only watched the episode with Billingsley in it, because you would have been done in like 10 minutes.
Less.
We love John. We had to give him.
Yeah, we can keep kicking him all the way out the door.
One more turn of the screw. Well, right. Well, Scott, we hope you know that Enterprise is truly loved by this fandom. You are truly loved by this fandom, yes. And we so genuinely appreciate your time tonight and your showing up for Trek Talks. We hope someday we can chat with you long form on the Trek Geeks podcast. But until then, it has been our honor and privilege to have you as a part of this telethon, sir.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Thank you very much, Scott.
Talking with you guys again. It was a lot of fun.
Thank you so much.
And good luck with the rest of this fundraising event. And again, thank you for doing it.
Well, hopefully, maybe we'll even get you for Trek Talks 3 next year. We'll keep you in the loop.
I like it.
All right.
Take care of yourselves, guys.
Well, that was a pretty jam-packed episode with lots of celeb power. And John Billingsley.
Oh, ow.
He's never going to listen to this.
No, he's never going to live it down either.
That's true. As you mentioned before, Trek Talks is a lot of work, and it is well worth doing. And there will absolutely be a Trek Talks 3, which you and I will very much be a part of. The work has already started. Next January, we hope to bring you an even better slate of Star Trek programming, all to benefit the Hollywood Food Coalition.
It really is amazing to think of what we've done so far. And I'm not saying this selfishly. I'm actually thanking all of the Star Trek people that have donated their time to come and spend time with us so that we can help raise money for such an amazing cause. So it really is humbling to see these people donate their time, and all of the people that are listening and watching donate their hard-earned money for the Hollywood Food Coalition. We could not be more thankful for everything that everyone has done. And like you said, man, I'm looking forward to the development, planning, and putting together TT3. TT3. I like that.
Oh, God. We've created a monster.
Yes, we have.
Dan, one of the great parts of this past year's Trek Talks was some of the musical interludes. We had such great performances by co-host Bonnie Gordon, the voice of the computer from Star Trek Prodigy, the Roddenberrys, who put on some great music. And of course, how could we not mention our friends, the band 5 Year Mission, who got together at a theater and recorded these videos for Trek Talks.
Yes.
Their performances were lights out. It was them on a stage live with no audience, but you never would have known it. It's just that much energy, and everybody loved it. I'm pretty much thinking we're going to have more music next year, but we're just excited that 5 Year Mission was a big part of the day. Head on out to 5yearmission.net. You can get all those albums that they were playing songs off of. Super easy. Get them shipped right to your door. Don't bother with those digital things. Get those CDs in your hand. Get that physical media so you can own it forever. 5yearmission.net, Dan.
Absolutely. And I'm gonna have to talk to the guys over at 5 Year Mission, see if they want to maybe start writing a song specifically for Trek Talks 3 and Hollywood Food Coalition for the big event. That would be kind of cool. I'm going to get on that. Exactly. I'll get on that. But being a part of this amazing event really has got me thinking, man. We raised $110,000. Just absolutely amazing. Hollywood Food Coalition is such a great organization, and we're so honored that we're part of helping those less fortunate who depend on that organization so much. But it also got me thinking of the time that we did that fundraiser once before, and nobody gave anything. I mean, I don't really blame anybody. Can you really blame people? Drummers be drummers, Maybe it's the fact that it was the Hollywood Fart Coalition was part of the reason. I don't know. Just thinking out loud, putting it out there, seeing if it'll stick. Yeah, that's the only thing I can think of. Because we got
new year.
Yeah.
Same old you.
Yeah.
Same terrible Farkisms.
Boom.
But different.
Thank you. But yes, but different. It's going to get, I mean, I know that the plateau is really high already. I don't know if I can get over it, but I'm going to try this year. I mean, because they're so good.
No. No, you are the Uncle Rico of Farkism people. Like, you can't even throw that football over the mountains. I mean, it's just, I thought that for the Hollywood Food Coalition, you would at least try. That ship has sailed.
Yeah, like at the end of The Lord of the Rings. Anyway.
Wow.
Right.
Don't forget, you too can support the Trek Geeks Podcast Network by subscribing to us on Patreon. So many wonderful people, Dan, that we talk about and mention every single episode, but we truly would not be here to do any of this if not for them.
Yeah, absolutely. We cannot be more thankful. And right now we want to take a moment to give special thanks to our associate producers for Trek Geeks. We are, like I said, so grateful for their support. And they are Vikram Bhatt, Chad Clark, Corey Clay, Brad DeMag, William Edward M. Jr., Patrick Escudero, Brandon Everidge, Andy Fark, Kimberly Francis, Jonathan Hamilton, William Jackson, Ryan Jeffs, John Krikorian, Sean Lynn, Rick Mason, Jamie McGregor, Ross McKinney, Jim McMahon, Aaron Mollenkoff, Helen Reed, Sarah Rutlinger, Tim Robertson, Desi Rogers, Greg Rozier, Eric Sakian, Adam Sanders, Tim Serdar, Heather Sohn, Blake Strike, I'm almost done, Rick Tatro, Lisa Tomlinson, Ron Robel, and the gracious and wonderful Connie Hutchins.
I see 2023 is off to the proper start.
Yes.
With Arnold visiting the podcast.
You're very welcome, yes.
You're very welcome. We also want to thank our Trek Geeks producers for their support. They are Mike Bovia, Steve Bovia, Chaz Bradshaw, Kyle Castillo, Peter Craig, Andy Davenport, Craig Ewing, Jackie and Chris Hackney, Kimberly Hartman, David Hood, Lionel Marchand, Matt McGonigal, Darren Metcalf, Charlie Mulvey, Sean O'Halloran, Casey Pettit, Jamie Rogers, Major Self, Casey Shafsky, Terry Shaw, Jim Stoffel, Chris Trabuzio, Ken Tripp, Christina Werther, and the lovely and talented Jess Fashion. Dan, the senior producer of Trek Geeks for now and all time, is Jude Tatman.
For now and all time, the Tat Man. I love it. You too can become producer on the Trek Geeks Podcast Network, and it's so easy to do. Head on over to patreon.com/Trek Geeks for all the details.
I'm going to make a rapid change to your copy as I speak right now, but Dan, 2 weeks from now, it's a number that is truly mind-boggling. And I say that because I'm out of town next week. It's a number that we are so truly humbled to announce. And who would have thought I would have been able to put up with you for this long?
I certainly knew that. I didn't think you could. I still don't think you can, and I think it's all fake. Yeah, congrats to you, my friend. Here we are. I never would have thought that more than 8 years ago when we started this journey that we would now be only one episode away. It is episode 300, and it's all right here on Trek Geeks, the flagship of the Trek Geeks Podcast Network. Wow.
It's mind-blowing. 300 episodes. Yay for us. Certainly we're not the longest running. Certainly we're not the best, but we have fun, and that's really all that matters.
We really do.
For more great Star Trek discussion, we want everyone to check out the other member podcasts here on the network, which are the best. I will say that right now and, declare that very vehemently. We have so many fantastic shows on the Trek Geeks Podcast Network, and they're all created by passionate fans who just want to celebrate this franchise we love and the vision of Gene Roddenberry. You can find all our Trek Geeks and where to listen by visiting trekgeeks.com/listen.
The Trek Geeks Podcast Network. No one talks Trek like we do.
Dare I say no one. They can try. They will fail. And of course, for all the news on all the Star Trek show, please visit our great friends at treknews.net. For now, this has been episode number 299 of the Trek Geeks Podcast. We do hope you all live long and prosper.
Coconut.
Ooh, that was loud.
Yeah, it was meant to be.
Let's try it softer.
Coconut.
Coconut.
Coconut. How about I say coconut 300 times at the end of next time's episode?
I quit.
Music for Trek Geeks is provided by 5 Year Mission. They're writing an original song for each episode of Star Trek. Hear more of their music at 5yearmission.net. Trek Geeks is a production of Coconut Media Works. Executive producers Bill Smith and Dan Davidson. For more great Star Trek discussion, discover the other shows of the Trek Geeks Podcast Network at trekgeeks.com or find us in Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or your favorite podcast app.
Heidi ho and bing bong to you, Dan.
Happy New Year, bing bong, pal. A little late.
Well,
but...
it's February 3rd.
Yeah.
But it's the first time we've actually sat down and record Trek Geeks.
Yeah.
In the new year, and as we've talked about already in the episode, our 8th anniversary.
Yeah, happy anniversary. My God.
Anniversary.
8 long, arduous years. I kid.
They're 8 years that have brought a lot of different things.
Yeah, really have.
I mean, I'm sure we'll get to some of that next year and next week or next episode in the 300th episode.
Yeah.
Because I have to go out of town next week. But it's I don't think either of us thought we'd get past 1 year, let alone make it to 8. Simply just because at the time we just didn't really grasp the whole Trek podcasting landscape.
Yeah, absolutely. And as you said to me when we first started this, and I had no idea what it was all about, you said most podcasts don't get past 10 episodes.
Yeah, the ones that are going to fade bail before the 10th.
And here we are. So I'm very thankful. I've had a great time doing it all. Looking forward to what's coming, and it's good to do it with you, man. And I mean that. I'm not being a smartass, even though this is the outtake. You jerk.
I was going to say, now I can't make a standard reply like, well, yeah, it's all right to do with you.
Cut you off at the pass, so to speak.
I know you really did.
Yeah.
It's last year. I think that 2022. I think we thought it was a year where we would get back into the swing of things, and we really kind of did. The year started off rough, but especially with work.
Yeah,
work was unbearable this time last year.
Yep, it really was.
But I really feel like 2023 is going to be a phenomenal year, not just for us, but for the entire network. We've already started Vegas planning.
Yes, we
Literally,
have.
it's 6 months from today, Vegas happens. And, or 6 months from, like right about this week, Vegas happens, and we are already knee deep in planning.
Can I tell you how excited I am? I think I've said this before, that it's at the beginning of August this time.
Yeah. You can. I'm a little less excited for that because I liked it slightly cooler, a little deeper in the month.
It's in Vegas, so that doesn't mean anything to me. But I'm just glad that for people that have kids that start school, and I actually have a couple of things later in the month of August anyway. So I'm just glad it's back on the regular schedule, as Picard would say, at the regular outlet.
It'll be interesting to see if it's still at Rio next year.
Yes, that's true.
I don't know if it will be.
Yeah.
If I were betting, I'd say I don't think it's going to be.
Okay.
But I just hope to God it doesn't go back to Bally's, which is now the Horseshoe.
I don't like that idea at all.
And that was a horrible, horrible experience.
Yeah, it wasn't great. It was not great at all. But it was still fun to do certain things and see certain people and stuff. So, yeah.
One of the things we've already started planning, and for those of you listening this far who may have gone to the party last year in Vegas, is a very different party in Vegas. The 2022 party did not meet our expectations because the venue let us down.
Yep.
Significantly. They didn't think we were going to pack the place. We did. They didn't have enough staff to serve the people that showed up. And then they hired a just terrible music during the party, which they didn't spring on us until right about when we got to Vegas.
Yep. And it affected a lot of people. A lot of people weren't happy about it.
We weren't happy about it.
Yep.
And unfortunately, there was nothing we could do about it. We can guarantee that this year, that isn't going to happen.
Mm-hmm.
And well, we'll tell them now. We won't give any details, but as of right now, we are planning a live recording of Trek Geeks at the 2023 Fan Geeks party.
Okay. No, I'm very excited. I'm just like, oh God, what's this going to be like? But it's, we've done recordings live at places before, not live. This will be live.
This will be live.
Yeah, but it'll be interesting. And when is it not interesting when we got fan sets with us? I mean, come on.
Well, that's true. I mean, we recorded ourselves, on the Roddenberry stage last year. That was live.
Yep, that's true. That was fun.
So this will be a bigger and boozier crowd, which I'm very happy for.
Boozier's always better. That's my hashtag for today.
But for those folks that are like, well, if you're going to do a Trek Geeks, what happens? We're still going to do the same amount of massive giveaways that we do.
Oh God, yes. That goes without saying.
We're still working out the architecture of the show, but at least 1 hour of it will be a dedicated live recording of the Trek Geeks podcast.
I'm up for it. I just do what you tell me. Yeah. So
I'm aware, which means I wind up doing a lot of work.
Yeah. You tell me what to do, I do it, and you do everything else. So hey, win-win.
How about you F off?
Bye. So I got to tell you, I'm not sure if you put me onto this. Totally different subject because we like to talk about different things here in the outtakes.
We do.
I started watching Tulsa King.
I did turn you into it.
I am on the 4th episode, and I've got to say, I have never been more impressed with Sylvester Stallone in my entire life with all of the things he has done. He is absolutely phenomenal in this show. My wife is a little skeptical to watch it because, let's be honest, he's had some work done, and it's a little hard for her to look at him as a result. But I think he looks great in this role. I think it fits him perfectly, and I'm into a new thing where I'm going to start. It was the Picard maneuver in Star Trek where Jean-Luc would pull down on his tunic. I think I'm going to start fixing my jacket by like shrugging my shoulders and buttoning the front of the jacket like Sylvester Stallone does in this because it's pretty awesome. Yeah, I said it.
That's really all you brought.
He's fantastic. He's like Kevin Costner in Yellowstone. These actors have been around for decades, but some of their best work are on these TV shows.
I largely think Kevin Costner is one of the most untalented actors in Hollywood. And I usually don't like to dog on actors because usually what they do is only as good as the material they got. Mm-hmm. But Yellowstone is really the only thing I've truly appreciated Kevin Costner in because I think he's working his ass off in that show.
Yeah.
Tulsa King genuinely is, I'm not a big Sylvester Stallone fan. Mm-hmm. Tulsa King genuinely is the best thing he's ever done.
Oh, it's so good. And
like since Rocky.
Yeah. I mean, and I'm not, you know what? It won Best Picture. I'm not a Rocky 1 fan at all. I'd never have liked it. I like 3 and 4 better than I like 1 and 2, which is kind of.
Come on,
I'm serious.
4 is terrible.
For the entertainment value of it and the campiness of it, I've always enjoyed 4. And the 5, I don't think I've seen that in like 20 something years. But I genuinely have liked the third and fourth ones better than I like the first 2. And the first one won Best Picture. So, but yeah, this is his best work. He's fantastic in it, and I'm glad that they're doing a season 2.
I didn't remember it winning Best Picture. I knew that he won an Oscar for Best Screenplay.
Pretty sure it did. Pretty sure Rocky won Best Picture.
You could be right. I don't really care. I'm honest. I'm honest. But this is some of the best acting that Sylvester Stallone has done in his career. And I think that says something. Yeah. I'm interested to find out what you think of the end of the season. They have renewed it for season 2.
Yeah. Okay.
Once you get to it, because I have some feelings.
Okay.
Which I shan't articulate now.
All right.
Only because I don't want to spoil anything for you.
No, I appreciate that. Yes, it did win Best Picture in 1976.
Okay.
Along with writer and actor Sylvester Stallone.
I didn't realize he was nominated for acting.
Actually, I could be reading that wrong because I'm reading it fast. It made its writer and lead actor Sylvester Stallone a star, is what the first Rocky did. So, yeah, there you go. So, yeah. Cool.
Well, congratulations.
Yes, congratulations to Stallone. And I guess he's in a new commercial now for Paramount Plus, which also has Anson Mount and Mariner. And Sylvester is climbing his own face. I'm just going to leave it at that.
He is, and I believe it was shot like a bunch of the other Paramount commercials where none of those actors were in the same room at the same time.
Yeah.
because it's obvious.
Wait a minute, weren't they on Paramount Mountain?
Shut up.
Sorry.
In 8 years of doing this podcast, our outtakes have gotten infinitely longer, and we're closing in on 10 minutes here.
Let's
and
go.
Nothing of value has happened.
No, I get to say how great you were, but if you don't want to take that as value, I guess we don't have to.
It's once in a lifetime. I mean, I know that this moment will never come again. At least it's recorded for time and all eternity.
There you go.
So yeah. Oh, and by the way, it's going to be freaking cold this weekend.
Oh, gonna be? It's freezing out there right now. They say that
just wait till tonight.
Yeah, the temperature when I was listening to the news at 8:30 this morning, the wind chill was minus 83 on Mount Washington, and they said it was going to get down to about minus 125 before all was said and done. So that's pretty chilly.
Based on the atmosphere, tonight the Mount Washington Observatory in New Hampshire could actually wind up being in the stratosphere as opposed to the troposphere, based on the way the cold front is coming through.
Yeah.
The temperatures on Mount Washington tonight could be roughly 100 below or more.
That's unreal.
That's 100 below zero Fahrenheit for those of you listening outside the U.S. Right now, here where we live, it's 10 degrees above zero, but the wind chill is making it feel like 10 degrees below zero.
And it's the middle
overnight,
of the afternoon.
Yeah, overnight it could feel like 30 below zero. Mm-hmm. And tomorrow night, it's supposed to be like 40 or 50 below zero. But then Sunday, it's going to be 40 degrees above. So.
Yeah. Well, New England. Oh, so, yeah. Yep. A little nippy out there. I was out there driving around, and it's very windy and very cold. So anybody in New England, stay safe, stay insulated, stay inside.
Lots of short walks with your dogs or other animals. Skin can freeze within 10 minutes in this weather. So, of course, by the time anybody listens to this, it's going to be warm again. So... You ready to do it?
I'm always ready. Ready.
That's a lie.
That's true. What's the topic today?
How much Dan Davidson sucks. Here we go.
Whoa.